this content is for kids.
It's not for kids.
Isn't that what I said?
No, it's not for kids. If you are 13 years or younger, this is not for you. Do I have to kill somebody in order to actually make that point across?
No, man, you don't have to kill no one.
Wait a second.
No. We
return to our planet. The High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies. We like movies. Septum Sin versus the world. Septum Sin versus the world. Septum Sin versus the world. Septum Sin versus the world.
I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings! You're watching Septum Sen versus the World. I'm Septum Sen, this is Kotobuki Jake.
Hi.
And we're on our, this is our third week of Oscar-related content.
I believe so, yes.
Yes, and all of it except for our first one debuted on a Friday. And technically at this point it doesn't matter where the first one debuted because it's floating out there in the ether.
Yes.
But this time, we decided to work together to find a top 10 of where Oscars got it right.
No.
What?
Where Oscars dropped the ball, man. They dropped. They dropped it hard.
I dropped the ball on that one.
They dropped it hard.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, well.
So, we have 10 times, some big, some small.
Yeah, we did a mix.
Where the Oscars, either during the telecast there were snafus that should have been avoided, or there are long-standing chronic issues with their nomination process, or it was simply a matter of they messed up with the nominees. So, you know, it's a mix.
Well, actually, you know what? Why don't you start us off today?
Alright, I'll start you off with a lovely clip.
Perform the Oscar-nominated, gorgeously empowering song, Let It Go, from the Oscar-winning animated movie Frozen. Please welcome the wickedly talented one and only Adele Dazeem.
You know this clip if you've watched our channel.
Of course. It's a favorite for when we mess up.
We like to make fun of Mr. Travolta, but yes, John Travolta had an incredibly embarrassing gaffe trying to introduce Idina Menzel for Frozen. This really, he wanted to include it as a bit of levity to start us off. It's really not something we can really blame on the Oscars.
Adele Dazeem.
But it did make for an awkward moment in the show.
Made for an awkward moment the following year when he was giving her that hug, like...
Right.
He tried to walk it back, it didn't work.
Right.
It's like, we're friends, right? No.
Yes. With some people that might work. Probably not with him.
Not one that's not necessarily an Oscar mix-up, but definitely made for an incredibly fun experience. Yes. So we started the night, and it was just last year. This was the 2019 Oscars, if I remember. No, 2018.
Yeah,
2 years ago. Yeah, not that long ago. And Warren Beatty and God, what was the other one that was up there?
Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway presented the award right here.
And the Academy Award for Best Picture.
You're impossible. Come on. La La Land.
Well, all things were going well, right? Unless you remember what actually won that year. And they didn't quite get the message until this point.
Today will provide the love, the compassion, and the humanity that will narrate the stories of our lives tomorrow. Fred?
Well, to the love of my life, Ali Lowy, I'm up here because of you. I love you so much. To my family, maman, papa, Jeff, hommage, je vous adore. Matt Pluff, you kicked this off, and Damien Chazelle, we're standing on your shoulders. We lost, by the way, but, you know.
Things definitely went a little ways, because the movie that won was not La La Land, but Moonlight. But Warren Beatty said, you know, it's not my mix-up. Matter of fact, you need to listen to my explanation. Right here.
That's nice of you. That's very nice. Yeah, Warren Beatty,
Hello. Hello. I want
Warren, what did you do?
I want to tell you what happened. I opened the envelope, and it said, Emma Stone, La La Land. That's why I took such a long look at Faye and at you. I wasn't trying to be funny.
Oh,
I like Jimmy Kimmel calling him out. Like, what'd you do?
But essentially, and it wasn't him that read it off, I'll admit.
Yes.
He would say, like, look, I saw it, I was a little bit perturbed by it, so she took it and read it off. He picked up the wrong card.
Yeah.
And so he picked
It's called reading people.
he picked up Emma Stone's win for La La Land, and ended up...
Now, granted, Moonlight was a dark horse winner. It surprised a lot of people.
Most people thought it was going to be La La Land.
Yeah, and honestly, between the two, I like La La Land a lot better. But I really feel bad for the Moonlight people. That's got us. I feel bad for both groups.
I was going to say, they were both embarrassed.
Everyone involved needed to be, well, either was or needed to be embarrassed. Everyone involved, but it would be, I don't know what would be worse, to get an Oscar and find out it was a mistake, or to find out that someone else was given your Oscar by mistake.
Well,
I don't know what's worse.
That's why I include the second clip.
Yes.
You can even see in the background where they're running around like frantically. They say, no, we messed up. We messed
Now,
up.
luckily, everyone was a good sport about it, and it could have gone a whole lot worse. And but God, that was embarrassing, and they should know better. They should not have stuff like that happening. And it was, I believe, they did hand them the wrong envelope, so that was, you know. That's, I think,
So
what
in
is
a
it?
way-
They keep an extra behind just in case.
just in case.
And yeah.
I think, so in a way, yes, it was an Oscar mix-up.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite their fault,
Right.
but at the same time, they both should have probably realized, you know, this doesn't... Why would Emma Stone get the main billing for this win for Best Picture?
Right.
I mean, we've talked about like whether we should be giving just the producers credit for the win for Best Picture before. We have that kind of back and forth on it.
Well,
But-
even then, I don't think Stone was a producer.
yeah, I was going
on
to
that
say, that's
film.
what I say, but, you know, she wouldn't have been the sole winner for that. That would have been odd.
It would have been, I think it would have been Damon Chazelle,
Yeah.
Justin Hurwitz, and a couple other folks, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly. I don't.
But in any case, that was just, those are two funny ones. And now on to one
Well,
less funny.
This one infuriates me. Infuriates me.
Especially since you have to have it in your collection now.
Well, I don't mind that so much. So anyway, since its inception, and we'll talk more on this as this episode goes on. But since its inception, there has been an issue with the animated feature category.
Yes.
A number of issues. And again, we'll talk about them most specifically eventually, but to specifically call out the year 2016.
That was a terrible...
The year 2016. We have a picture that we can show you that sums much of the argument up in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You have Koe no Katachi, the glorious film A Silent Voice, and Boss Baby. Guess which one got the nomination?
Yeah.
Not only that, this was also the year Your Name came out. Your Name and A Silent Voice are two of the greatest animated films ever made.
Not even mentioned.
Not even mentioned. Not even nominated in any category. And what adds insult to injury is that they went one further. They didn't just nominate Boss Baby, they nominated Ferdinand as well. Ferdinand was a really good movie. It was better than I expected.
Yeah.
But it was nowhere near being the same level as the best films of the year. And it was much better than Boss Baby. Boss Baby was a very watchable film, very entertaining, and awesome probably if you're 10. But if you are over 12, it's a good movie. There are no two ways about it. There is no possibility that an adult could watch that film and say it's one of the best films of the year.
Oh,
it is not
obviously
possible. So, I'm probably going to get some blowback on that. But no, it's not possible. So, I don't know what they were thinking. Well, actually, I do know what they're thinking, but we'll save that for a little bit. But for right now, we're going to call them out for that horrible, horrible choice of snubs.
I just see
of noms.
Picture in my mind of Boss Baby sitting at his computer, angrily tapping a comment on this.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is, yeah.
And we'll talk more about animation as we go on. But the next one is the last of the super specifics. And this had to do with not just a nominee, but a win. That kind of attaches to our fifth spot, but we'll get back to that. We were primed that year. That was last year, if I recall correctly. And we all had our lists for what was going to win Best Picture. And we were ready. And we all had our stuff. We were all certain. And what wins? Green Book. Now, I would have understood if this was the 90s, or the 80s, or the 70s. Maybe not in the 60s. But
yeah, late 80s, early 90s, this is the kind of film that would have won.
Yeah, these pandering films, these pseudo, this is really cool, but this is the white savior films. Yeah. And this made me mad even more because the film kind of misrepresented, because the guy in it, the benevolent white man, was actually quite racist himself in real life.
I don't know what they have to say. It makes no difference anyway. Whatever it is, I'm against it. No matter what it is or who commenced it, I'm against it.
So, this hurt on multiple levels. I really didn't want this thing to win anything because I didn't want to have to pick it up. I really didn't want to pick it up.
Oh wait, maybe we got our years mixed up. I'm sorry.
Was it not last year? I swear it was last year.
Oh no, that yes. I'm looking at something else.
Oh, you're looking for the Boss Baby? I swear it was this. No, it was the same year as The Silent Voice. It might not have been the same year as Your Name, but I thought it was.
I thought it sounded.
But before we move on, I think that this is a good transition point to include a little song.
Manson, Hitler, white male rage. World War I, 'cause of white male rage. Little Women, big performances, but Greta Gerwig some 'cause of white male rage. Buzz and Woody at it again, it's white male rage. White male rage. White male rage.
I really hope we don't get dinged for that, but that's just, to me, that exemplifies our next one, which, when you're ready.
Okay, and wait, no, I'm getting I think I'm getting my years of release mixed up. Yeah, I'm sorry, I think I was getting my years of release mixed up. What's up?
So, hit us off. We had a nice song to start us off. So,
well, for the Oscars So White. We've heard of this quite a few times. This is
Good year
Hashtag that this is a good year for its return, sadly. There were 2 years running where it was big time. And was it 2016 that they jumped it off? Or
I know
was it 15?
Jada Pinkett Smith was one of the ones that she was the one that headed that, because the Will Smith movie of that year didn't have anything.
Concussion
didn't get anything.
Yes. So what year did Concussion? I think that was 2015. Yes, that was 2015. So 2015, 2016. Because you're right, that was one of the things that jump-started it. And I will say, in his defense, Mr. Smith did a phenomenal job in Concussion. It was one of his best roles. And he was a minor snub. I would not fight for him as his being out of the top 5 was clearly racism. But it was a damn good performance from Will Smith. But if you look at the... Did you have one of the images of all the sea of faces?
Yeah.
Yes. If you look at that image, you'll see why people were making these kind of snide remarks. And I believe it was one of those years where the biopic Amy won, and that was by an Asian, a man of Asian descent. He was far and away, if I remember correctly, the highest profile person of color to win that year. Best documentary feature. That's not a small award, but it's not one that people really...
They're not really thinking about it.
Yeah, they're not thinking about it.
And it was a documentary about a white person.
It was, yes. It was a documentary about a young, attractive, very talented white singer who died young.
I'm a born free American woman.
That's... Yeah. What's that?
What was that film? The one about the NWA.
Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, Straight Outta Compton.
That was part of the issue too, because that was, I think, 2015.
The only ones that got nominated were the white people.
The only ones that got nominated, yes. The only way they could have made that worse is if they nominated Paul Giamatti for supporting actor. That would have been the only way to make that situation worse. And, and it was also 2016 was the year, I believe 2016 was the year of Selma.
Yeah.
Which of course we spoke about that last week, so check out our video last week. That one was many people thought David Oyelowo and Ava DuVernay were snubbed, and of course Common and John Legend won original song, and that was awesome for them. Actually, if I recall correctly, John Legend is one of the very few people who's an EGOT winner, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, and he can thank that movie for that designation. So, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, Legend got no love for La La Land. I mean, his song "Start a Fire" was one of the most kick-ass parts of that movie. But yeah, you get
even the following year where they tried to make up for it, even 2017. Get Out got snubbed in a lot of categories.
So this year we're looking at a situation where, and we have a picture for this too, where we have a lot of people calling out the Oscars for snubbing Jennifer Lopez, Lupita Nyong'o, Awkwafina. You have the entire cast of Parasite left out in the cold, even though they're phenomenal performances. J-Lo did a phenomenal performance in Hustlers. Hustlers had other opportunities for diversity as well. Waves was part of the conversation. There were a lot of these films that were part of the diversity conversation this year. And, the one foreign actor to get a nomination this year, we love Antonio Banderas, but he's technically white dude, But he did get a nomination for a foreign language role, and we do have Cynthia Erivo representing for African American. Well, she's British technically, but African Brits representing, for playing Harriet Tubman, and she's a double nominee for acting and music. So there is diversity. Bong Joon-ho getting director nod is awesome. It's huge. But there were so many opportunities.
Birth of a Nation. Of course, that had some controversy, but still, even then, I think, there's a lot of that was, I think, dredged up when it was not talked about before, when people knew about it. So I really think that one was sabotaged because of the race. It's
not enough love a lot of people would say for Black Klansman.
Oh, yeah.
There was definitely, and I continue to say, and I will say until I am blue in the face, not enough love for anime.
Yeah.
Or, for Japanese productions in general, for Chinese productions in general.
He only drops my copies.
Well, yeah. But yeah, so generally this is something that Oscar continually drops the ball on. They continually drop the ball in their attempts to address the issue. And we'll talk about one of those coming up here in a bit.
It's been like that since the beginning, though. Even the Gone with the Wind win.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it was somewhat epic there. I think it was the first African American to win, but it was for a part that was But that's the thing is this is not a new thing.
And the I love me some Karate Kid when I was a kid, and Mr. Miyagi is the wise old sensei, and Pat Morita did do a phenomenal job. But let's look at it objectively. Mr. Miyagi is very much a walking, talking stereotype. Morita did a phenomenal job, but but that's one of the very, very few, I think, Oscar-winning roles by someone of Japanese descent, and it's not a. It's unfortunate. And then I also forgot to point out, you also have a picture. We got a picture here. Mr. Eddie Murphy had a banner year for Dolomite Is My Name, which not just him, but Ruth Carter, fresh off her Oscar win for Black Panther, was considered a front-runner for costume design.
Will Smith for Gemini Man.
Well, no one was really pulling for that, but there again, an Ang Lee film starring Will Smith, no one paid it any attention. I've been revisiting Robert Rodriguez this week. His take on Alita Battle Angel. I know James Cameron's name is all over that thing, but Rodriguez was the one who actually directed it. He actually did the groundwork with that one. And Rosa Salazar is the star of the film. There could have been some good Latino representation. That film got reamed in the visual effects nomination. It should have been up. And, again, there's just so many... so many others. Again, I mentioned Awkwafina, but Lulu Wang's The Farewell was considered a multiple snub. So there's just so many.
It surprised me big time when Awkwafina didn't get a nod.
It didn't surprise me as much as...
She was on the short list.
Didn't surprise me as much as Parasite getting as much as it did, but, still. But that's the point. We do get diversity, but it's not as much as we'd like, and it's definitely not as much as we should get.
Not as much as it should.
Yeah.
It's enough to make it a token.
Yeah.
Speaking of, well, actually, no.
Well, speaking of lack of diversity,
let's talk about John Williams, an excellent composer, by his own right, but one who seems to get multiple nominations for variations of the same score.
His 52nd nomination this year makes him the most nominated person alive. He is second only to Walt Disney. Walt Disney had, I think, 59 nominations. So, with the next 9 Star Wars films, Williams will surpass Walt Disney.
I don't want to go on a rant here, but America's foreign policy makes about as much sense as Beowulf having sex with Robert Fulton at the First Battle of Antietam. I mean, when a neoconservative defenestrates, it's like Raskolnikov filibuster deoxymonohydroxynate. What
the hell does rant mean?
My gosh.
So, yes, and I say that in all seriousness. This is why we wanted to include John Williams. The dude is talented.
Oh, yeah.
He is unbelievably talented. He has written some of the truly iconic scores. However, he is usually nominated in the original score category. He does have a few nominations for original song.
Yeah.
But he mostly is nominated for original score. He is mostly a composer. I have read enough of the Oscar bylaws to know whereof I speak. I think. I hope. Every year I wonder why some truly phenomenal scores get overlooked. And oftentimes I have to admit, when I really go back and look at the movie closely, reluctantly, I have to admit that it's not a score so much as a piece of music.
This had a great score.
Right. I'm sure it does. Most of Almodovar's films do. But some good examples. Dave Catay's music for The Ghost World. Alexander Desplat's music for Moonrise Kingdom. These are two that jump to mind. Phenomenal music. If you watch the movie, you're thinking, wow, this movie has the best score ever. What they have is a piece of music composed for the film that is cut and pasted and edited throughout the film. And that is ineligible by Oscar rules because it's not a substantively original score.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Wait till I get going. Where was I?
This is my problem with John Williams. He has not done a substantively original score for Star Wars since Star Wars. He has not done a substantively original score for Harry Potter since The Sorcerer's Stone, and that cribbed heavily from Home Alone.
Yeah.
He has not done a substantively original score for Indiana Jones since Raiders of the Lost Ark. He got 2 Oscar nominations for the Indiana Jones series, 2 for the Harry Potter series, and about 10 for the freaking Star Wars series.
I'm gonna drink your blood like cranberry sauce, meanie.
And what's worse, one of the most iconic, brilliant, wonderful, Oscar-worthy scores he ever wrote, Jurassic Park, was not even nominated.
Yep.
So when it comes to nominating John Williams for his substantively original work, the Oscars have not been keeping their eye on the ball.
Well, they did the first time.
No, yeah. and I pick on John Williams because he's the worst one. But Thomas Newman getting a nod for Skyfall was just as much bullshit. I mean, Newman did a wonderful score, but you brought up, I love your use of this term, I never thought of it before, there does need to be an Oscar for adapted score.
Am I going mad? Or did the word think escape your lips? You were not hired for your brains, you hippopotamic landmass.
Woody Allen won that a lot of times.
Yes, adapted score. Another good example, Carter Burwell's music for The Man Who Wasn't There.
Yeah.
That was mostly classical pieces adapted for the film.
Shoot.
That would be a really good one to have. Adapted score. Do not do this bullshit of nominating adapted scores for original score when there are really worthy contenders out there. It's stupid. It's one of the stupidest things Oscar does again and again and again. Just make a new category.
Speaking of.
Yes. Oh, speaking of stupid.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Okay, well, this one goes back to... This is a mixture. This is a mixture of Oscar messing up big time, both in the nomination, the win, the presentation, and then the person who won going and making it so much worse. And I'm speaking, of course, of Sam Smith's win for the theme song from Spectre. I don't even remember what the damn song is called. It's not that great a song. You have this treacly, overblown pop ballad that sounds vaguely like something you would slap on the front of a Bond movie.
Yeah.
It was my 35th or 36th pick for the year for original song. There were so many better songs that year.
Everyone wants my Dunkachino. I can't get enough of my Dunkachino. Kids from 7 to 17 lining up for my Dunkachino.
The best of them all, the one that should have won, was Priscilla Ann's gorgeous Fine on the Outside from when Marnie was there. Juanes Juntos from the Disney production McFarland USA. and the Oscar-nominated song from The Hunting Ground, Till It Happens to You. All three of those were phenomenal songs. They all deserved nominations. The first two didn't even get nominations. And again, Priscilla Ahn is half Korean. Juanes is from Colombia. There's some really good representation there. Juntos was a Spanish language song.
Yeah.
You know, some good stuff. You know, Fine on the Outside comes from an anime, so that's kind of cool. And then Till It Happens to You, Diane Warren and Lady Gaga. This was Lady Gaga's first stab at Oscar. As we have said a few times on this channel, it is baffling that Diane Warren never won. She should have won for that Aerosmith song.
Yeah.
It's baffling that she's never won. And Oscar really ramped it up. They really played it up. They had friggin' the vice president, Joe Biden, come out and introduce the song.
Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you that they think it's going to win, I don't know what does. And then they had an upset with Sam Smith winning. So they had egg on their face all day. But then this is where it got really stupid. Sam Smith gets up there, and he, you know, I admit, if you're going to be on, you know, a surprise winner, you're going to say some things in the moment. But he went up there and took credit for It's So Wonderful to be the first openly gay Oscar winner.
I read an article a few months ago by Sir Ian McKellen, and he said that no openly gay man had ever won an Oscar. And if this is the case, even if it isn't the case, I want to dedicate this to the LGBT community all around the world.
Exactly what he said, but it was all along those lines. And I was immediately going, no, dude, no, I don't know what you're talking about, but that can't be right. And it took me 5 seconds to think. Melissa Etheridge won original song for An Inconvenient Truth. It took me about a minute to go, Elton John has won an Oscar.
He might win again.
What the hell was Sam Smith thinking? What the hell was he thinking? Now, supposedly, he heard an interview with Ian McKellen where McKellen commented that no openly gay actor has won. You know, McKellen himself has been nominated a couple of times but hasn't won yet. And he does deserve a win. He is one of our finest living actors. But Sam Smith he did not have his facts straight, and he said something in the heat of the moment that blew up in his face.
I don't have facts to back this up.
And the fact that he didn't deserve that Oscar in the first place, I do not begrudge him as an artist. He is very talented, and maybe one day he'll create an Oscar-worthy song and be back in the race for that. This was not an Oscar-worthy song. So the entire debacle was, to me, just, ugh.
So, you know, the Oscars have been always trying to gather that, you know, Super Bowl crowd. They want to be hip with it. But like your old man trying to fit in with the boys, it don't fit. Oscar has tried their darndest to come up with various ways to bring it in.
Yeah.
Be it shortening their time, which I've hated that, by doing various travesties, such as the suggestion of, let's just cut out some of the unnecessary ones and give it to them during the commercials.
Yeah.
Like, say, short films. Or, what was the
Shame on you.
Or, one of the things that they did do was screwing with the musical presentations, which really makes me mad.
Oh, fuck! I'm pissed!
Because some of the musical presentations, first off, that's an excellent way to break it up.
Yeah.
And two, some of those performances, like that one with Lady Gaga, like the one for Salem.
Well, both of the Lady Gaga ones, really.
And the Blame Canada one with Robin Williams. These performances...
And the Lego movie one. Everything is awesome. Everything was awesome during that performance.
I mean, that's the thing. These performances are memorable. These things bring us some entertainment in it. Why are you cutting that? It's like, let's cut the extra entertainment portions.
Yeah, they keep coming up with these stupid montages that no one gives a damn about. But the thing is, for me with the music, when I started watching the Oscars, they did full music, and not just the songs, but they would play snippets of the scores from the orchestra.
Yeah.
And I like that. I love that approach, because for someone who hasn't seen the film, you can feel like, oh, well, maybe I know a little bit now. Now I know what they're talking about. And it's the same deal with playing clips during the nominations. Like if you play clips of the acting during the acting nominee sections, if you play a little clip of the film during the director nominees, you know, or at least the director on set doing some stuff, you know, that would be a wonderful way to let people at home get a little taste of the film and know what the hell they're voting on in the first place.
The theater, the theater. What's happened to the theater?
They keep trying to strip down everything that pads the time, and they don't pay attention to the fact that most people really are not there to watch Hollywood fillet itself. That's what Hollywood is there for. We're there to watch the other stuff, like Adele Dazeem, but also, but also the stuff like the fun performances. You know, this is the second year running that they're apparently not doing a host, and last year it was forced on them, and they made it work, and everyone kind of liked last year, so they thought they'd try it again. You know, but and then
the new categories.
Did you mention the whole idea of inviting certain people to perform and not others? That was a huge slap in the face to the nominees. That was just a bad idea.
Well, then there was taking Chris Rock and trying to have him mediate the Oscars So White, which I thought was entertaining. Or to try and I like piggybacking Oscars So White on this, because they were going to try and create a category just because they didn't want Black Panther to win or have any other nominations, essentially trying to put in a popular film category.
Well, it also had to do with simmering distrust over movies like Straight Outta Compton and that sort of thing. And I'm going to be honest, Straight Outta Compton was not on the same level as Black Panther. Black Panther really was a great film. Straight Outta Compton was a really good film. It deserved more possibility at the Oscar than it got, but it wasn't quite as huge of a snub as people made it out to be. But it was an immensely popular film, and Oscar has a terrible track record of really noticing when films are immensely popular.
Well, look at that. What was the film, the one about the bombs? Hurt Locker.
Yes.
I mean, yes, Hurt Locker was an excellent film. I'm not going to besmirch that. But look at what it made. Look at the popularity of the film. And the film was not known by a lot of people who were not, like, into the awards scene.
It did make a really fun David and Goliath thing of the X's, Battle of the X's with
I believe Avatar was
of
that year. And
Catherine Bigelow versus James Cameron. That did make a fun narrative. And you couldn't have gotten much further apart in terms of the box office.
Yeah.
But a big example of the Oscars' snobbery toward popular films and their half-assed attempts to address it, they snubbed, horribly snubbed, both WALL-E and Dark Knight for Best Picture. And they also didn't give either of them as much due in other categories as they could and should have. They did give them some due in other categories, but not as much as they should have. So the expansion to 10 for Best Picture was a good call. However, they've pussyfooted around with that and almost never had a field of 10. There pretty much is 8 most years and 9 this year. And there's always at least one film. It just makes it that much more obvious that there are snubs happening when you have, for example, this year, a Field of 9 and Knives Out is not there.
Monkey's out of the bottle, man.
Or something along those lines. It's really annoying that they tried to do that to get the popular vote in, but they still are playing their same snobbish games. And the idea of a popular film category horrified people because we thought that that would ghettoize these films even further.
Oh yeah, it'd be like one of the other ones we'll talk about, where they'll just say, it's got its nomination. We don't have to nominate it for anyone else.
Exactly.
And this actually same for the last two, really, because the last two exemplify that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay.
Speaking of one that likes to an area that pigeonholes things.
Pigeonholes, yes. Oh, I forgot one very specific one that I needed for this. But anyway, one example, and you don't even have it here.
Skulking in the Dark. What is it that
Princess Mononoke.
Oh.
But anyway,
that's because I haven't watched it.
Oh, that's why. Okay. So we'll just
Well, I've seen the film, but I haven't watched my copy.
Yes. Okay, so it's right here.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Oh, I am enjoying this scene.
Get on with it.
Yes.
The reason I wanted to bring this one up, well, the next category, the reason I wanted to bring this one up, next category we're talking about here is foreign language film, which they changed the title this year to international feature film. And guess what? They immediately found themselves the subject of controversy because Nigeria submitted their first ever Oscar eligible film. First ever. I think I read that was the first ever Nigerian feature. And it's ineligible in this category, even though it's been renamed International Feature. They still have the rule that there has to be a certain amount of a foreign language to go in the category. This Nigerian film happens to be largely English because that's the dominant language in the area that it was filmed. But it's ineligible as a foreign film because it's mostly English.
No soup for you.
And that's long been a problem there. But you've also had issues of it, like you've had American productions filmed entirely in other languages that were ineligible for foreign language. One of the worst of this was the wonderful film Maria Full of Grace, which was up for Best Actress for Catalina Cedeno Moreno, but it was an American production filmed entirely in Spanish. But it was ineligible for foreign language film because it was an American production. So, but these are not the primary reasons this category pisses me off. The primary reason this category pisses me off.
You know what really grinds my gears?
There's really maybe 3. One is a different submissions eligibility window. It's the only category, except maybe the short films, I'm still unclear on them, but it's the only feature film category where the eligibility year is not the same. It's off by about 3 months. It's like September to September or something, which makes no freaking sense.
Get used to disappointment.
If the film does not have to screen in the U.S. to be eligible for the category, why is it on a different schedule? It makes no sense. If there was a rule about it had to screen in the U.S. first, that might make sense.
Yeah.
But it makes no sense. It's stupid and arbitrary and makes no sense.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Have all the categories on the same submission window. The other thing is, it doesn't have to screen in the U.S. It's the only category where they don't have to screen in L.A. County. Now, I kind of have issues with that, too. A lot of these films never get a proper U.S. release. They go straight to video, if that.
Yeah.
So, for us at home, we kind of screwed in this category.
Yeah.
And then this is probably this is one of the biggest issues, and this one really, really, really infuriates me. It's the countries that are nominated. Now, I kind of get the idea that maybe it makes it a little broader, a little more likelihood of countries you wouldn't normally think of, like Nigeria, getting into the mix. Maybe it does help mix things up a little bit. We don't have a complete dominance of Spanish films one year and Japanese films another, and that's kind of cool. But let's say, just hypothetically, let's say that the Tres Amigos of Mexico, Guillermo del Toro, Alfonso Cuarón, and Alejandro González Iñárritu, and let's say Alejandro Amenábar and Pedro Almodóvar, all decide to set up shop in Spain one year. They all decide to make Spanish films. They all release them to great acclaim that eclipses everything else they've ever done combined. So for Cuarón, you've got something that gets more buzz than Children of Men, Roma, Prisoner of Azkaban, and all that combined. And in Iñárritu, you got more than Babel and The Revenant and The Birdman. For Del Toro, you got more than Pan's Labyrinth and Hellboy and Shape of Water and all that. Almodóvar, you got more than Volver, Talk Tour, Pain and Glory, All About My Mother. Amenábar, you got more than The Sea Inside and all that together. Let's say they all put them out in one year. Only one could possibly be nominated in that category.
There can be only one.
And that seems incredibly unfair to those directors, especially because foreign films tend to be ghettoized into that category. Like Pain and Glory this year shockingly got a Best Actor nod, first ever, for Antonio Banderas, not even considered to be in contention for director, even though it's one of Almodóvar's most acclaimed and supposedly most personal films, and he's been nominated before. The only other nod I got, international feature. But another good example of where it ticks me off is my love for anime. Japan has to choose. They can't submit more than one. Princess Mononoke and this year's Weathering with You are the only anime ever submitted for this category, because they've always gone live action elsewhere. They've picked up nominations here and there for Ron, Departures, and some other really good films. But great films, actually, in the case of those two. I don't believe Let the Right One In was nominated. I don't think it would have been able to be, because it probably was not the one submitted by Sweden. And that brings up another issue. We're allowing another body besides the Oscars to narrow it down to one for that country.
Please, sir, I want some more.
What? Ask for more?
The Oscars don't even get into it until they're submitted.
Well,
you know,
it's a category that, in a way, and this day and age should probably start to be phased out. It's not. It's right now. It's still necessary because people aren't seeing these films.
Right.
But in this day and age, more and more people are having access to these films.
Right.
So long as they could get a U.S. release. I really feel like the L.A. County thing is stifling anyway.
Yeah.
So long as they get a release in a big city, I feel like they should just be up for the regular things. But they would be, right now they'd just be ignored, unfortunately.
Now, every now and then you get a totally random, like the 100. Well, a good example is like the 100-year-old man who jumped out the window and disappeared. Only got a nod for makeup. The Grand Master only got nods for costume design and cinematography. Every now and then you'll get a foreign film sneak in there without even getting in this category. And you never know what'll happen with that. But I do admit that the idea of doing an international feature was probably a step in the wrong direction. It might be good to keep foreign language as a category, but A, try not to ghettoize the films to that. B, make sure that it is specifically a category for films in another language, regardless of nationality. And then, you know, the other thing that pisses me off is that it hurts the directors. You don't get a nod. You get a nod for Japan, not Hayao Miyazaki. You get a nod for Spain, not Pedro Almodovar. This year, Parasite gets a nod for South Korea, not Bong Joon-ho. You know, it's... And in the past, where you've had people who were not up for director, like Bong Joon-ho got a director nod, Ang Lee got a director nod for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But that same year, the film... Or no, not the same year, but let's say a good example, Jean-Pierre Jeunet for Amélie. And that went to France, not Jean-Pierre Jeunet. For Das Leben der Anderen, The Lives of Others, that went to Germany, not, I believe, Germany, not Florian Henkel von Donnersmarck. So it's very unfair to the directors and producers of the film, who might not otherwise have any shot at an Oscar nod, to nominate the country instead of the directors and producers. So the whole setup just stinks.
It stinks.
It stinks. Yeah. But I love the idea that foreign film at least has a toehold. It just needs a little bit more love.
Well, like foreign film, pigeonholing is not exclusive to certain categories. Matter of fact, a category that was actually made in order to pigeonhole in a way.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
But we're talking, of course, about animated feature. The animated feature has many facets, but this time we're going to be talking about snubs because, like Boss Baby, really, in a way, Boss Baby and Ferdinand factor into this, where it's a lot of the perception. A lot of that perception that animation is for kids.
You know, for kids.
As we say at the beginning of our video, it's not for kids.
Well, take, for example, the ones we raved about. Your Name is considered a family feature, and it is considered all ages appropriate in Japan. Here in this country, there's a running gag that would make it iffy for youngsters, and it also gets really dark in part of the film. But it's a flippin' awesome film that is good for most of the older kid audience to adults. Silent voice is something that I think high schoolers should probably be required viewing, but it moves so slow, most kids would not get into it. But those were both incredibly phenomenal films. Summer Wars was a big-time snub. That's less easy to write as a kid-appropriate film. This one definitely is more teen to adult, but Summer Wars was a victim of one of the early things they had going on in that one, which was when they first came up with the category, they didn't think there would be consistently enough to do. So they basically said 16 or more animated features for a field of 5, and if there are fewer than 8, we won't even do the category.
Gentlemen, Ciccolini here may talk like an idiot and look like an idiot, but don't let that fool you. He really is an idiot.
Luckily, they did away with that rule, and luckily they've never gone a year without the category, but they have done several years where there was a field of 3. The year this came out, it was Toy Story 3, How to Train Your Dragon, and I believe it was Sylvain Chomet's The Illusionist was the other one. I still maintain that if they had done 5, Summer Wars and Tangled would have been the other nominees. And they were both excellent films. Summer Wars was the best of the bunch. The 3 that were nominated were all excellent. And The Illusionist was not a random kids film. But this also puts into clear relief the Academy's prejudice against anime. If it's a European film, especially French,
Yeah, they like
it has
French.
a very good shot. If it's a French film, it has a very, very good shot at a nomination.
Yeah.
A foreign film. Oh, the evening is saved. I like French films, pretentious, boring French films. I like French films. 3 tickets, s'il vous plaît. Ow.
Not win.
Not win, but nomination. If it's Disney or Pixar,
It's pretty much Disney or
it
Pixar.
was pretty much given until Frozen 2 didn't get a nod.
Yeah.
But that was a shocker for us all. But seriously, I looked at a list of the nominees, and actually anime has more nominations than any other language. Japan has more nominations than any other language except French. There is one Spanish language, I think 2 now, with Klaus's Spanish language,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's 2 Spanish language films. Chico and Rita, I think, was the name of the one. That was like a Cuban film. There's the Brazilian Boy in the World, Tom Moore's 2 Scottish films, Song of the Sea, and Irish, I think, Song of the Sea and Secret of Kells. I'm going to piss someone off with that.
And you, friendless, brainless, helpless, hopeless. Do you want me to send you back to where you were? Unemployed in Greenland?
But those were excellent. But again, seriously, they're mostly French films or American films. Very few anime. The only non-anime nominated for animated feature is Mirai to date. Neither of the global blockbuster Makoto Shinkai films, Your Name or Weathering with You, got nominated. Summer Wars did not get nominated. Boy and the Beast, Wolf Children, also from this director. Maquia, brilliant film, gorgeous, tear-jerking film. Silent Voice, wonderful, wonderful film. And it's not much better in the short film category, where only, I think, about 4 anime have been nominated, if even that. And this year, Modest Heroes was snubbed in that category. That had 3 excellent short films. It's just, basically it comes down to most people either A, think animation is just for kids and they'll just randomly pick whatever their kids are talking about, or they'll take time to watch the French films because that's art. And that's bullshit. Now, I will admit, some of those films were wonderful. The Illusionist.
Oh, yeah.
Loving Vincent was a phenomenal movie.
But what was that? The Cat in Paris, which was okay. But
Cat in Paris
there were
was
so many better ones.
Cat in Paris was it was a kids' film in French.
Yeah.
I mean, it covers both bases. But Boss Baby was straight up. There's no flippin' way you can honestly say Boss Baby made the cut for any other reason.
Well, but of course that's not the only thing about the snubs.
Yeah.
It's also the specifics as to what makes an animated film.
Yes.
There are many ones that don't make the cut. But I'm sorry. If freaking Lion King, live action Lion King, can make the cut, then the Adventures of Tintin and the Lego Movie should have been able to make the cuts.
Yes. Lego Movie had a short scene at the end that had no animation, but most of the film was animated, and even in the live action sequence, there was limited animation scattered throughout. I saw the short list the year Cats and Dogs, The Revenge of Kitty Galore came out, and that was on their short list for
had a lot of
animated
live action to it.
Yes! If that could make their short list, how could Lego Movie not be considered an... Yeah. And then they famously got egg on their face for sending Steven Spielberg a letter asking him to justify Tintin as an animated film. That's messed up.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough faith in Steven Spielberg to know what he's doing And Tintin was such a fun film, and it perfectly fit what they go for, that family-friendly vibe.
Polar Express, another done in that style.
Yeah.
A family favorite now for the Christmas season. It shouldn't have necessarily won, but it should have deserved a shot at the nomination.
Apparently they were afraid of films like Avatar that are heavy on mocap getting a nomination. But I'm sorry, when you have mocap characters in a live-action setting, that's different from the entire thing being animated. And the other thing that I really want to point out with the animation, they really, and again, being pigeonholed, in the entire history of the Oscars, 2 animated films, only one since the creation of the category, the Kubo and the Two Strings and Nightmare Before Christmas, are the only 2 animated films nominated for visual effects. There have been a handful nominated for writing, mostly from Pixar.
A lot of them
there have been a lot of them for song, a lot of them for score, but I'm sorry, score should be dominated by animated films most years. But there are at least 3 existing categories that animation gets robbed every single freaking year. And anyone with a passing knowledge of movies has to know that film editing, sound mixing, and sound editing should probably be dominated by animated films. So if they don't want that to happen, create separate categories for animation.
I deride your truth-handling abilities.
Because they need to get that acknowledgement. That is a huge part of creating an animated film. And there should be a best animation category that is separate from animated feature. That is the actual visual appearance of the film. There should be an animation category. And that could include films like Avatar, because animation's a huge thing. I saw the Annie Awards. They do have a category for Best Animation in a Live-Action Feature, which went to Avengers Endgame, of course. But, you know, and yes, Groot and Rocket are pretty well done. They are pretty well done.
Well, and one of the things that was interesting, I mean, we also forget Best Feature, or Best that particular one. I was just looking to see
which ones have got it.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, a good example: Beauty and the Beast is one of the few.
It's the only one. It's the only one ever nominated before the creation of that category.
That's probably one of the reasons why they created the category.
The only ones nominated for Best Picture since then were both in the wake of WALL-E.
Yeah.
Again, WALL-E was partly responsible for the field going to 10. A lot of people thought it got snubbed for Best Picture. Up and Toy Story 3. And that's it. We haven't had one since then.
Well, many things.
And there should have been several.
The category was created specifically because Beauty and the Beast got on that list, and they were going, no, this is not for kids' films. We need to do that. This may have been part of the reason. This may have been part of the reason. Well, that one also was snubbed highly that year.
Right.
And, I mean, I love animated feature because I love being able to watch all of those, and they're really cool. But I feel like they looked at that and they said, no way we're going to let one of these films get in our Best Picture list. I'm surprised that they didn't put comic book film and superhero film in a category.
Well, that's probably what they were trying. That's what they were trying to do with the popular film, I think. Now, Best Picture is Best Picture.
Yes.
And I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal to have categories specifically honoring animated films and documentary films and foreign language films.
Yeah.
But that should not exclude them from the big race. Documentary film's another one that's often excluded from that big Best Picture. Yeah. They're almost never. Almost never. This year, Honeyland made history as the first film nominated in both documentary feature and international feature. Yeah. But that's pretty cool. But that could have happened before. Waltz with Bashir could have been up in all 3 categories and Best Picture.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was only up, was it foreign language film?
I mean, shoot, what did Persepolis get?
Animated feature.
See, that one. That was an amazing film. It should have been up for more.
Yeah.
It's, but that's the thing. We could come up with countless examples. We could keep going on all night. We could make an entire video.
And then...
But I really feel since we're getting to the hour mark, we need to get final remarks because we need to start wrapping it.
Right.
But...
Oh, Foo's come to join us for that.
You know, at the end of the day, I mean, we both really enjoy the Oscars.
Right.
We wouldn't be poking these things at it if we didn't have some belief in this. If we didn't have some love for the award or the ceremony. To me... I can't speak for him, but to me, it is something that old Hollywood feel. There's a bit of magic still in the Academy Awards. There is something about that, and let it not be said that, Boss Baby being the exception, one of them, that the vast majority of the films nominated are amazing pieces. These are films that if you were to watch only the Oscar-nominated films, you would still have most of them being phenomenal films. These are some of the best of the best. So,
in general. I still love when Jon Stewart hosted the Oscars and Norbit was nominated. And he made the crack of Norbit proving that the Oscars don't just nominate good films.
Well, that was makeup. Makeup is...
Yes, makeup is a quirky category. See, Suicide Squad's win.
But again, best of the best. Despite it all, Norbit had some of the best
makeup. It had phenomenal makeup. And the same dude is up again this year for Bombshell.
A slightly better film.
he did win for Darkest Hour, which was also a better film. But... see, and there was some good representation because the dude's Japanese. But it's... Yeah, Suicide Squad's win could have easily been one of our picks for... But at any rate, yeah, it's fun. Again, I, for one, don't care if the show runs a little long.
Yeah.
I like just taking a night and just saying this is Oscar night.
I mean,
and that's fun. And I would, again, a lot of these issues would be addressed actually with additional categories. I do think adapted score is a must. Best animation is a must. I do think use of music in film is a must. Oscars for vocal acting, either one overall or male and female ones. Same thing for bit player cameo, and that could also help this crap of shoving lead actors into supporting and that sort of thing. You get less of a weird mix in the support category. I think there should be one for stunt work or for stunt casting at least. There should definitely be one for best ensemble acting. Yep. You know, that's one we barely touched on tonight, but there have been a lot of great ensembles that got gypped because Oscar was afraid to pick one, you know? Parasite being a good example, or he brought up Downton Abbey as a good example, or in last week's video, again, check it out.
Yeah.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There was another one I was just thinking of. Oh, whatever. You get the point.
So next week is going to be our predictions.
Oh.
We've been doing work on this, and we're going to be taking... I'm going to be taking the week, and we're going to do it the same way we did. I'm going to do the research and see what all the people are saying. And he's going to go for his Oscar... what was it? Oscar
I've got this one to watch. And I'm going to try... I do have Netflix now, but I'm trying to make it work on the television, and I haven't figured it out. And sometime the next couple days, I'm either going to get it figured out or give up and just start watching on my computer.
Yeah.
But I got to get all those knocked out, and that's going to be a whole bunch of movies there. But it'll be fun.
Well, so to end it all, I want you to think about this. The Oscars, in a way, are some of our film buff Super Bowl version of the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Now, how many of you would say, well, the game's going into overtime, cut it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The Super Bowl, sometimes it is not worth watching once it goes to overtime, but it just depends.
Sometimes. But with that, this has been Septum Sound versus the World. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.